Astrological Portrait of Enzo Ferrari by Ciro Discepolo. Enzo Ferrari was born in Modena on February 18th, and not the 20th, as Henri Gouchon specifies in his Dictionnaire astrologique, 1898, at 3 a.m. We are convinced, however, that his birth should be anticipated by a quarter of an hour, be half an hour. In fact, observing his birth chart, we realize that the sun, for a man who dedicated his entire life to automobiles, cannot be at the end of the second house, but must necessarily be in the third. However, even in the position it finds itself in, without correcting the birth time, it should be attributed to the sector of which it is the cusp. Note, at that time I had not yet quantified the value of a cusp. In this regard, we would like to clarify a detail that often escapes newcomers, that in a case like the one in question, the sun is not about to enter the third house, but is on the verge of exiting it. This is demonstrated by the fact that after half an hour, at 3:30 a.m., the ascendant, and therefore also the cusp of the third house, will have advanced a few degrees, leaving the sun even more exposed in the second house. In the horoscope examined here, the sun is conjunct Venus at 0 degrees, ruler of the fifth house, children, is in the third house, as already explained, and is squared to natal Uranus in the 12th house. All this, read after learning the story of Enzo Ferrari, clearly explains the many children who died, the sun rules the 8th, in car accidents. And this was the great tragedy of his life. An editor of the Osservatore Romano wrote of him, "A modernized Saturn, it continues to devour its children." Perhaps the Vatican press colleague knew astrology. Enzo Ferrari is indeed Saturn, since the star is the first dominant in the birth chart in question. It, as can be seen, is on the ascendant, closely conjunct the horizon, and when the star, called the Great Malefic, by tradition is rising, it generally indicates many trials on the path of the person to whom it belongs, and above all, much loneliness. The loneliness brought by Saturn can also be external, but it is primarily internal. It is a vocation carried within, which makes one feel alone even when two people share the path of life. Enzo Ferrari, on the other hand, is truly alone. A widower, he lost his beloved son Dino, an engineer and advisor to the Maranello Base company many years ago, who died very young from a serious illness. Perhaps this is why many say he is harsh today, very severe, uncompromising, and never says thank you to no one. Yes, perhaps. But with such a strong Saturn at birth, it's hard to imagine him otherwise. He does have another son, but it's as if he didn't have one. His name is Piero Lardi, and he works in a factory under him. He had him with a school teacher he met during the war. He didn't give him a name because he swore to Dino that he would be the only Ferrari. As you can see, having children is a very important chapter in the subject's life, and is marked prominently in the natal horoscope with the interplay of disposition and governance and aspects between the 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 12th houses. Saturn devouring its own children. It's difficult to escape the evocative charm of such a powerful mythology. Of course, he's not to blame. He simply builds cars, and his drivers know the risks they face every day. But his horoscope speaks to us of these lost children. We are certain that in his mind, in his old but still strong heart, there's a very large place where all his boys are still alive. The De Portagos, the Nelsons, the Castellottis, the Collinses, the Mussos, the Von Tripps, the Bandinis, the Villeneuves. And then there's the list of sons who betrayed him, Niki Lauda first and foremost. Finally, There are those he left by the wayside, those he fired to give his cars a better chance of winning. It's therefore a long chain of broken relationships, one way or another, and one can certainly understand why the world's most famous Italian commendatore is reputed to have a cold relationship with his men. All this despite the beautiful Jupiter in the mid-heaven, the second dominant of the chart. Jupiter is trine Mercury, Mars, and Pluto, and sextile Saturn, and is practically sitting on the mid-heaven line. It speaks to us of the other salient aspect of Enzo Ferrari's life, the one related to victories, to success. The great Formula One constructor started from nothing, as a laborer, as a truck test driver, but in his future, along with many misfortunes, there was also great prestige, international fame, a well-deserved fame, as his cars are marvelous mechanical jewels that make all Italians proud. Through 1980, he won 21 titles, bringing prestige to his country and making all motorsports enthusiasts dream of a red Ferrari, and 2,000 to 2,500 people a year also manage to make this dream come true, a dream that emerges from the Maranello workshops and which, for the engineer, represents another aspect of his life: money. The strong employment of the second-place company tells us that he fought hard to achieve concrete results from an economic standpoint. The Sun, in third place, however, as already mentioned, also explains which sector the money ultimately came from. If he had been passionate about movies and entertainment, for example, with the Sun in the fifth house, the money would probably have come from there. His chart, like any chart, exhaustively explains everything we want to know by reading the symbols of the sky, and this exercise, done thousands and thousands of times, also helps us make predictions about the future of people we don't know, whose birth data we only have. By studying a birth chart, we can also shed light on a person's luck and bad luck, as with Enzo Ferrari's horoscope, which, however, says that bad luck doesn't exist. This is a point on which an astrologer and a pragmatist, individualist, as he calls himself, a car builder, will never be able to agree. On the other hand, we can't blame him either. What would all those years of racing have been like for him, with the ephemeris in hand? How would he have faced every eve of difficult transits? Where would he have found the courage to send his son onto the track when the stars were against him? But there's a certain element of destiny, an impalpable force that can influence life according to him, and it's in the number 17. Formula One constructors, drivers, and technicians don't consult the ephemeris, but they pay attention to the color of their helmet, the keychain they had on the day of an accident, their starting number, and many other small details that help them release the enormous charge of tension they carry before a race. Returning to the magician from Maranello and remembering his ruling Saturn on the ascendant, we note the pessimism in his words. "My life has been a laborious journey. I wouldn't go back. I no longer like this world where violence has replaced reason. I glimpse a vast penitentiary that holds its inmates within us. Selfishness conditions us, often distancing us from others, forcing us to rely on our own resources." This is the opening message of the book Biaggi, dedicated to the character, which offers us a precise, essential snapshot of this man governed by great sadness, accustomed to winning, as his business partner Gianni Agnelli says, but never baring his teeth in a smile. And yet, given the very close conjunction, 0 degrees, between Venus and the Sun, One certainly can't say he's a misanthrope, quite the opposite. He's just intensely pessimistic, depressed, a doctor would say. He looks at the world from behind his dark glasses and sees struggle and bloodshed in his past. This great automobile craftsman must now contend with the multinationals from around the world that have declared war on him, pouring rivers of money into their businesses. Craftsmanship has given way to the technologies of the future, to the synthetic materials used for space shuttles. The days of Fangio and Ascari, scarf-wrapped, are definitely over, and even though he has adapted well to the new direction, we can't say he doesn't harbor a sense of nostalgia in his heart. However, there are sorrows and regrets in everyone's life. The same goes for victories and secret dreams. What did the grand old man of Formula One dream as a child? He answers us himself. I'm someone who dreamed of being a Ferrari, Ciro Discepolo. From the book How to Discover the Secrets of a Horoscope, published by Albero Milan, 1988.